Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I have for you my June wrap-up. As always, I have already done a mid-of-the-month wrap-up in which I talked about all the books that I read in the first 2 weeks of the month, and I will leave that linked up there and down below, so go and check that out if you want to see which books I read in the first half of the month and what my thoughts were on them. Before I get into my usual stats, I just want to quickly mention something, and that is that I read a bunch of manga this month. However, the manga won't be part of my stats because for some reason I just personally don't like counting manga towards my reading goal, and so I just end up not counting them towards my stats as well. Although it's funny because I do count graphic novels, but there's just something about manga where I don't feel like each volume is really a whole story, where I just personally don't count them towards my reading goal. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into my stats. I read a total of 10 books this month, 2 of which were rereads, the other 8 were new to me, and I also read 5 manga, 2 of which were rereads again. I read 6 adult books and 3 books that were middle grade / kids books. 3 of the books I read were high fantasy, 1 of those was a graphic novel. Then I also read 2 urban fantasy, 2 literary fiction. I read 1 book that belongs into the genre of Afrofuturism and 1 book that is historical fiction. And all in all, I read a total of about 4,200 pages. My star ratings this month were surprisingly good. I had 1 5-star read, I had 4 4-star reads, 1 3.5-star read, and 2 3-star reads, and that all came out to an average of 3.8 stars, so almost 4 stars per book this month, and I'm actually quite happy with that. So before I do my usual talking about the books in order of star rating, I quickly want to talk about the mangas that I read this month, because just as I don't count them towards my reading challenge, I also don't rate mangas, so yeah, mangas are just like outside of my reading for me. I don't know why. But the first manga I read in the second half of this month is Koi Monogatari by Toro, and this is a slice of life manga following Yuji, who is a high schooler who overhears one of his classmates talk about how he likes boys. And that kind of brings him to think on sexuality and what is sexuality even, and he decides to help this classmate to lead a happy life so that he doesn't have to deal with prejudice and so on. And it's just a really wholesome and cute story, and I really enjoyed it and can definitely recommend it. Then I read 3 volumes in the manga series Bloody Mary. I had reread the first volume in the first half of the month, and now I reread the second volume and then read the 3rd and 4th volume for the first time. And in this manga series we follow Ichiro, who has some special type of blood and ancestry, which means that vampires really wanna kill him and wanna drink his blood. And so he has to fight off vampires all the time. Enter Bloody Mary, who is a 400-year-old vampire who really wants to die. And Ichiro is the only person who can kill him. He has literally tried everything. However, Ichiro doesn't really know how he can kill him, and so the 2 of them pair up, Bloody Mary protecting Ichiro from the vampires, and Ichiro promising him in turn that he will try to find out how to kill Bloody Mary. And yeah, I really enjoy this manga series so far. There's a lot of mystery in it and what exactly is going on and so on, and it's just a fun read. Now let's move on for my reread in the second half of the month, and that was Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. This is the first book in the Inkheart trilogy, and this is the book, I have talked about it a lot on my channel already. This is the book that made me fall in love with reading and made me fall in love with books. In this story we follow Maggie, who is a 12-year-old girl, and one rainy night there's a stranger who appears at her and her father's flat. And so she finds out that her father has the ability to read characters from books, and everything goes on from there. I just love this story so much. It's like a middle grade YA, it's kind of on the brink between the two. It's like an older middle grade, younger YA, but it's really slowly written for a middle grade or YA. but I still love it so much. And funnily, I like randomly read through some negative reviews on Goodreads, and one of the reviews was like, why does everyone in this book think they're so special just because they love reading? You're not special just because you love reading. And my reaction to that was, I mean, yeah, you're not special if you love reading, but you completely missed the point of this book. This book is a love letter to books and reading, and it's so beautiful and I love it so much, and it felt like coming home, starting this book again and reading the first sentence. It's so beautiful. Now we're getting into the territory of talking about books in the order of the star ratings that I gave them. First, I want to talk about Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. I gave this 3.5 stars. And I was really surprised by this book. I picked this up because it's about black vampires, or one black vampire, and you don't see black vampires a lot. And so I thought I'd pick this up. And it's not what I was expecting, because this is a vampire story, yes it is, but it's definitely not like urban paranormal fantasy. This is literary fiction, and I want to make sure that you know that if you want to pick this book up and go into it, because I think a lot of people might give this a low rating just because it's not what they expected. In this story, we follow Shori, who one day wakes up incredibly hurt and wounded, and she has no memory of what happened. And we kind of follow her as she tries to find her memories again, and follow her as we find out that she's actually a vampire that's older than 50 years, even though she's in the body of a 10 to 11-year-old child. And this was one of those books that while reading made me feel stupid, because there's so many themes woven throughout this book. And every sentence I was like, I'm sure there's something being said right now, but I just feel too stupid to know what it is. So there's a lot of themes throughout it. Of course, racism and bigotry being two very big themes, but also a lot about consent. And also woven into the theme of consent is a trigger warning, because there are some sex scenes between Shori, who is of course this 10-11-year-old child, and adults. And I'm not going to go into like the specifics of that, but there's like a lot of stuff in connection with that, and also what is consent and what is okay and so on. But yeah, overall I really did enjoy this book. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. However, I would have given it 4 stars, but I kind of bumped off a half star because there's a lot of exposition in this book, and it's kind of dealt with in a way because Shori has amnesia, and when stuff is explained to her, it's also explained to us, but it still felt kind of just like info dumpy a lot of the times. And so that's why I only gave it 3.5 stars. Then I finished book 6 in the Wheel of Time series, Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan. I kind of have the hope that I might be able to finish it by the end of the year. I mean, the whole series. Let's see. But yeah, I'm currently enjoying each book in the series more and more. This was quite a chunk to get through though. I read on it the whole month. But yeah, there's some stuff that I don't like about the series. There's some stuff I like about the series. But I'm just probably going to do a whole series review once I'm done with all of the books. Then I have The Color Purple by Alice Walker, which I gave 4 stars. By the way, Lord of Chaos I also gave 4 stars. And this is also literary fiction. It's like this black queer classic. I'm sure you all have heard of it already. And we follow this young woman as she finds her confidence and as she finds herself through meeting another woman and falling in love. And I was surprised, I was kind of intimidated because it is this kind of literary fiction modern classic, but I was surprised that it's really easy to read because it's told just through letters. And so I really enjoyed that. I kind of really flew through this book, and it's also really short. And I can really see why this book had such an impact and why it is so important, like literary-wise today. So yeah, I definitely am happy that I finally picked this up. And then lastly, I have volume 1 of Monstrous, which is a graphic novel by Meichuri Liu and Sana Takeda. And this story follows a young girl who has this like monster god thing inside of her, and there's a war and everything. And I also gave this 4 stars. However, like the reason why I gave it 4 stars is because the story itself was kind of like, it was okay, it was enjoyable, it wasn't like the most next level thing ever, so I would have given it 3 stars. However, the art was so incredibly beautiful, or is so incredibly beautiful, that it was such an enjoyment to like leaf through this novel and to read it, and it's just so beautiful. It's like this mix between steampunk and kind of also turn of the century ornamental art, and then of course like modern graphic novel styles. And it's just so beautiful. So I can highly recommend you pick this up if you're at all into graphic novels, if you're at all into art, and you do not think that fantasy usually is your genre, and you do not usually enjoy reading stories that belong into the fantasy genre, I would still highly recommend you pick this up just for the art, because it's so beautiful. However, do not pick this up if you're queasy about gore and stuff, because this is very bloody. But yeah, I'm now excited to get into the second novel of Monstrous. And that was it for this video. That was it for all the books that I read in the month of June, or in the second half of June. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read any of the books that I have read and what your thoughts were on them. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!